We've got a bunch of people from some projects who are working with the framework. Oh, people are still jumping in. Okay. Yeah, so we've got, folks from TheTie, from DebtDAO, and from Exponent AI, all of whom have been using the framework, running into issues, and taking notes on those issues, also building models. And so we've got a lot of content now to like work through. And the goal is hopefully after this, you guys and also other folks who are here have a little more understanding of the tools we've built, and hopefully we'll have moved forward with your ability to build models with our framework. So having said that, I think I guess we have a PowerPoint. What is this one, Chow? What have you sent me? I'm going to ignore this for now. So I think the first thing I wanted to start with was maybe walking through one of the models that has already been built. So Kunlun, if you maybe want to share your screen and go to our gateway, I'd love to check out the cash flow model that the DebtDAO guys made. And Seawalk, do you mind maybe just talking about what you guys were hoping to accomplish, what this model does, and then maybe what your hopes for it going forward are? Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but that's how it's going to be.
That's perfect. Yeah, sure.
Maybe a short intro for yourself too, since you're here.
Sure. So, Seawalk, you can call me Chris, co-founder of DebtDAO. And we also have Dave. Dave, if you want to do just a quick hello.
Hello. What's up, guys?
So Dave is he's one of our members of the team that's been contributing. He helped me with this cash flow model. So the background context is DebtDAO's building. We had to verify staking rewards that they were getting on their convex position, and then additionally, the majority of Redacted's quote unquote income comes from the fact that they receive bribes, every 2 weeks for having such a large bag of convex that they vote lock. And historically, they've accomplished that through Vodium. And I went to Mo and just started. Geez, I don't know, man. What was that? ETH Denver. We started kind of really talking about this, but I would say maybe March. We started just kind of brainstorming how to go about this, and then got to the point where it worked, and we confirmed everything with the Redacted team that the numbers worked well. I believe we have some dependencies on the pricing model, and it's very accurate. So you guys did a great job because like almost to the exact dollar amount, Redacted agreed with what we provided them based on this model that we built. And then Dave came in. Dave, I'm happy to have you take it away here, but TLDR is he generalized it, and now it's really applicable to any wallet or smart contract address.
Yeah, that was the main purpose of the generalized cash flow model, right? So the initial intent was like Seawalk approaches Mo and says, hey, like we have this need for Credmark's framework, right? And that need is we want to validate cash flow for one of DebtDAO's borrowers who's looking to take out several $1,000,000, right? So it makes sense as to why it would be necessary to have insight as to how they're earning money. In this case, is through the Vodium contract, right? And so beyond that, we said, okay, we have essentially like a lot of the things with Credmark have been abstracted away. And as I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen, there's this concept of inputs and like passing things to models as parameters. So essentially what we did, it was very simple when it came down to actually writing the code, is the redacted cash flow model just hard coded the redacted and the Vodium addresses, right? And so it was just tracking those two addresses specifically. And Seawalk and I took a step back and said, okay, well, the principles here really apply to really any two addresses, right? We just need to pass them as parameters, and so we created the generalized cash flow model, which only involved a couple tweaks, but the implications are very strong in that you can essentially here track cash flows between any two addresses, whether it be like CWOC to myself as a sender to receiver, or let's say I don't know, an active liquidity provider on Uniswap V3, like the amount of money that they're receiving from LP fees from like the pool address, right? And at the use cases really explode from there. But I'd say like regarding Credmark in particular, what I've noticed that's most exciting is this idea to be able to like build infrastructure, right, and to abstract a lot of things away such that you can put together relatively straightforward models with very few lines of code that are modular enough that they can be applied in many different contexts.
Yeah, that's a great point. Kunlun, can you bring up the code for their model? It should be just in the contrib folder.
Yeah, I think it's like contrib DebtDAO generalized cash flow .py.
We blocked by the PD. I don't think we need this PowerPoint, by the way. I would rather just kind of run this. We waiting on something? Cool. Yeah. So you know, Dave, you did some work actually digging through the framework. I'm wondering if there's anything in like how you were building this that stood out to you.
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't clear at first. That
Mm-hmm.
is there something that we could have done better while you were building this that would have made this maybe even quicker to build?
Honestly, answer to that is for this particular thing, no, because you guys told me where to look, right? So the biggest thing that I came out of this with is just like saying to all you guys who are looking to build models on Credmark, there's been enough built at this point, such that if you have an idea for something, there's a decently high chance that someone has built something similar to it, right? So I would encourage you not to write models from scratch and rather to try the best you can to reuse existing code structurally, right? So with this, for example, I mean, we had the redacted Vodium cash flow model, right? And I don't, you probably don't need to pull that up as well, but essentially it was this, but without any input structure, right? Meaning it was just taking an empty input and it had the hard coded addresses. So the two changes that I needed to make were to like properly accept input and then pass that input through the model such that like the parameters were being used effectively. I had no idea at first because I never worked with Credmark before how to accept input through a model, and so what I did was I spoke with Neil or Niels, and he pointed me in the direction of this other file that he used, which was an example of a model. I think it's in contrib Niels research.py. And yeah, in the research.py file, it was just a very different type of model, but it took input. And I said, okay, well, this is generally the structure of the input. Like you kind of build a class. You see, I built the class called input GC input. That class has characteristics to it.
Sorry to
The
cut you off.
two,
Kunlun, can you make this full screen, please? We can see it a little better.
yeah. Also, if you want to scroll up to the input, so I can show.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you want to scroll up, Kunlun, to the top of this, you can see there, like that's what the input struct looks like. Again, had no idea how to do this at first. Really, like, didn't take a long time at all, right? But the all of the time saving was done by just looking to another example, right? And so I'd say the one point of feedback that I have, like, for the Credmark team, and like something that I'd like to keep tabs on as a community of model builders here, is a lot of the code that's going to be written is going to be able to be reused. And I would love to sort of put our heads together to come up with a structured way of keeping this community tight and, like, building on top of the shoulders of each other, as opposed to a lot of people sort of out in the dark trying to figure out things from scratch. I think that it would save a tremendous amount of time. That thankfully was saved with the creation of this model, because I had Neil's help there, just telling me where to look. But that would apply to any models going forward.
That's a good point, David. I actually think Kunlun has been working on a like boilerplate type command line command that will just sort of create a lot of this code. Because you're right, a lot of the time is spent sort of setting up this structure. So I believe part of our development on the framework side is to include like a shortcut that basically just kind of spits out a boilerplate that you get started with. So,
Yeah, maybe, like, but I'm not talking as much about, like, building, like, tech solutions. I think more so, and I see that you guys are doing this as well, just establishing structured forms of communication between like, model builders within the Credmark community.
gotcha.
Yeah, because I think that it's just, there's going to be a like, hopefully, right, like, ideally an inflection point is hit, and then all of a sudden there are just a shit ton of models on the Credmark framework, right? And at that point, most people aren't going to take the time to look through to see all of the models that have already been built. They're just going to want to do something to accomplish a task. And I would just like to get into the rhythm of saying, okay, I have something that I want to get done. Let's build, like, a structured way of, like, querying the community, right? Whether it be a tech thing or just, like, messaging a chat or something like that, to as efficiently as possible get an understanding of what's out there and how that can save time.
Yeah, there's definitely room for a curation job here. This is something I've been thinking about a little bit, so that people know where to find things, and then somebody has to go through and understand what these various models are doing, and then talk to people who are doing things that are similar, figure out how they can work together, et cetera. I think you're right. Um, it I think we need to be careful of not trying to address that too early, because imposing structure on people before it's really needed just kind of slows things down. But I can see that being necessary pretty soon.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue to the next point I wanted to make, which is, y'all built this generalized cash flow model, and it is cool, but it's not, given the nature of gas fees and slippage, it is not perfect, right? There's room for improvement, and I'm Seawalk or Dave, you want to maybe talk about what your next steps for this particular model would be as far as like price slippage or gas fees goes?
I mean, I don't know if we have like defined that per se. I think that what I identify is I think it comes back to the pricing model. Like, if we iterate and improve upon that and add gas for slippage, I mean, Dave, maybe that's something we can do. Also, like, to me, that's one weakness. I think that's like the key assumption is we're swapping to stable coins, and it's just taking like a blended price based on. I mean, Mo, you would know the pricing model better than I. Is it based on the volume, or like how does it create that blend?
Kunlin, do you want to jump in here because you've done a lot of work on that pricing model? You have any insights into how it's currently built, and then maybe how we could improve upon it?
And then if you're talking, you're muted.
You there?
Sit. There we go. We can hear you. We heard you now.
For a second, we could hear you.
No, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Oh, well.
Whatever you're doing, we can hear you. We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay. I'm trying to adjust the. All right. So the pricing model has been recently under a lot of development work. So there's still being a lot of work to be done. So we actually have been pushing a little upgrade from what was previously. The current one is gathering all the prices, which is effectively ratios of reserves from different pools of the DEXs. So now we support Uniswap V2, V3, and SushiSwap. And we gather all these prices, and now we actually assume all the stable coins, USDT, USDC, DAI are value of 1. And then we come out with a liquidity weighted prices from it. And this is not perfect. And I already find some prices are off, and this is being worked out.
Gotcha. Do you have any? Go ahead.
So it's the ratio that you guys use would be obviously price on each of those exchanges versus reserves, and then if I heard you correctly, you said then you guys do a liquidity weighting between those three.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Was the thought process there just like in the event of like having to swap these, you need the liquidity? I'm thinking through liquidity versus the volume traded on each of those.
I mean, I think you can make an assumption that something with high liquidity probably will have high volume. You know, the reason people would put liquidity into the pool is because there's volume to get fees. So the incentives are such that you can kind of rely on that.
Yeah.
So what I find out that the V3 pools, because the V3 has introduced concentrated liquidity. So some of the liquidity are not right. So that actually has been impacting some of the prices. So that's what I find with the new liquidity pool weighted model that has this pitfall. Yeah, but it was better. It was better than the previous one.
Gotcha. Do you have any ideas of how you could build a price model that takes into account what slippage might be? I assume it includes like liquidity, and depending on which pool you're potentially selling into, how do we go about adjusting for that? Just like a quick high level sort of theory.
Yeah, sure. So I think we need to take in fees and also slippage. So one quick way to do it is to look at the other side, which is to look at traded prices and try to see what is the difference between the traded price and to the quoted price. And then we probably can figure out what is the historical slippage. It's not an easy task, but that's kind of high level.
Gotcha. Okay. And you think, I mean, given the tools that we've built, that's potentially possible to work on?
We have the tools. I think we need the time and the computational resources. So prices for every block takes a long time to download and extract.
Gotcha.
You are just fighting with time.
Gotcha. Cool. Seawalker, Dave, before we move on from you guys, any other points or questions you guys had? I think I'd love to get y'all some other time working with Kunlun and maybe get some theories on how we could build this pricing model to be a bit better. But just any last thoughts from you guys would be great.
Not really on my end. I mean, I think that there's a ton of opportunity going forward. Just like even beyond this cash flow model, Seawalk and I have spoken about just different ways to like evaluate wallets, right? Like we talked about sort of a P&L model, right, that tracks like the inflows and outflows of cash into a given wallet in a given period. We've discussed call it like a diversity of holdings model, where imagine if you take a DAO treasury, right, and you see, okay, like how consolidated is that DAO treasury in its native token? Basically, like the world is our oyster here, and we're very excited to keep diving in with you guys and build things on top of what Credmark's put together.
Sweet, thanks.
Not much else to add on my end. I echo the sentiment. We've listed probably 10 various things that we'd like to work towards building out, leveraging this powerful platform that you guys have built. So really excited.
Great. Cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fun building this model with you guys, and I'm looking forward to doing some more stuff. Brendan, do you mind jumping in for a second?
Yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Good. So you had some interesting bits of feedback on how, I guess, as you've been using the framework, I'm curious. I have your list of questions that we brought up. I think one of the first things you mentioned was Ledger, the Ledger component of our framework.
Yeah.
Do you mind elaborating a bit on what more you could glean from us about how to use that, and then maybe we can run through a really short example, if you don't mind, Kunlun?
Yep, definitely. That seems.
Well, first, Brendan, just kind of add some color onto what your thoughts and questions about that were.
Yeah. So first is a little question for you. My understanding is that the Ledger class is like your internal database that is, has kind of these raw transactional data like you would see on Dune, for example. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. So
they're just tables in Snowflake. So we are working on level 1 data. I think definition of level 1 or level 2 can brought up that later, but you are right that these are the tables in our in-house database.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, I'm really familiar working with these tables through things like Dune or our own internal data. And I think, a lot of people that are familiar with, again, like Dune will, could leverage a lot of these tables. And a few of my questions or maybe feedback was adding some more functionality to query these tables. For example, one thing that I was running into, I couldn't figure this out. I'm not sure if it's possible, but I wanted to do like a subquery. For example, one thing that we do a lot is like looking at collections of holders, like looking at wallet addresses. So I want to find, all the wallet addresses that interacted with Uniswap, and then I want to do, some other calculation on that. Then I want to go and look at their balance over time or something. And so I think that's an example would be really useful to do a subquery where I can, find all those wallets and then join it on whatever tables I need to, then aggregate. Other than that, sorry, go ahead.
I think what you're asking about is what our second order data would be. But Kunlun, am I correct in thinking that? Being able to filter on a specific protocol or contract?
Yeah, my take is that what we are doing, and some of the syntax you already seen in DebtDAO's model. I hope that let me see. Let me reshare my screen. So we are actually, if you are looking at it, the code, that we are actually wiping over the SQL syntax in Python. And what we have been doing is to, so far we have accomplished for single table, and also for, you see that the version before is fixed column headers. And now we're actually adding a bit of flexibility to that. So drawing two tables, that will be something that we are going to work next. So right now, we're actually, if we want to do subquery, it will be running one query first, take the data out, and then run the second query. and the join may not. Yeah, it's actually possible. What actually comes out from this function called get ERC20 transfer is actually to generate SQLs. So we can figure out some syntax to describe the relationship between two tables, and then this can be done. That would be my take on it.
Cool, Brendan. Does that kind of maybe sort of? It sounds like we're working on making the thing you want to do a bit easier. I guess right now it's a bit of a synchronous, or like one after the other type process. But I'm curious if that sort of addresses your question.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, just splitting out the subqueries into single queries in Python and then doing the the relationships there. My only worry is that if it was such a large query where it made more sense to do it all in SQL, maybe there could be some performance issues there. But yeah, I mean, it's a really I've enjoyed working with those basic tables, and it's really straightforward to get things like token transfers or transactions, logs, and stuff like that.
Cool. One more question I had for you was the models we currently have. I know there's some that you've been interested in. Do you want to maybe talk about which ones you guys are looking to potentially use, and where you think we could improve upon them? Either we internally or we with us and you guys, how we can make them better?
Yeah, I mean, I think the models themselves in isolation are really good. For context for everyone else, a lot of the stuff that we're looking at is like DeFi risk related, and looking at. I mean, one of the things we were looking at is like stablecoin pool reserves over time, and so using like the specific curve reserve model. And then like what we're doing now, I think Momin, you also already did a lot of this work, was just like aggregating, like building another layer on top of that model to aggregate all inputs to get a single output instead of having to call the model multiple times with all the different contract addresses, just having one model that loops through all the contract addresses and gets those reserves. So kind of just building like, like groupings and aggregations on top of existing models is something that we're doing, and it's also really helpful. For example, if we want to display the data in like a single table on our front end or a dashboard, that's what's really useful.
So by saying aggregating, that you're saying if our model, as opposed to having to run it for every individual stablecoin 3-curve pool, just to have one model that sort of gets all of them and gives you the reserve ratio over time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Or if I want to see the biggest changes in TVL for Uni V2 pools in the last day, so having go through all the pools, calculate that, then only return the top 10 values or something.
I see. So given our current modeling, I'm wondering like what the best way to do that would. So Kunlun, do you have any thoughts on like, so Nish has built a Uniswap V2 like TVL model. How would we go about doing what Brendan is asking, or how would a modeler go about saying, okay, I have this Uni V2 TVL model, and now I want to just like run one model that gets the TVL for like a handful of pools, or in a handful of pools over time, I guess. What would that look like?
Yeah, sure. So there are two dimensions. So one is to get a list of pools. Another is to get the history. So we have a historical model, and so we can run using a window and with a certain intervals. So I noticed there was a question say, can we run the interval at a shorter than 1 day? Definitely can. Just that the shorter it gets, the more computation and more time need to wait to get the data. And also to get a list of pools, there should be no problem. Actually, we have other models that actually already shows that we are getting all the pools from Curve, we are getting all the pools from Compound, we are getting all the pools from RV, and so that we aggregate numbers from all the pools.
Cool. So it looks like the tools are there. I think an interesting exercise might be a more refined or specific workshop where we actually like do that. But it seems like it's very possible, Brendan. I think just with some time we can actually make that a reality.
Yeah, I've been playing around with it. I haven't had a ton of time, but I think I've started, gotten a decent amount of the way there. So I'll update you guys or more questions if I have it. But
one other question that you had was best practices for working with abstractions. Can you maybe elaborate a little on that? And then once we get through this, we can move on to the Exponent guys.
yeah, I mean, I think we already covered a lot of it. Basically, I think what the DebtDAO guys were saying in the beginning was that you already have a lot of these base level models that are really good, and that a lot of the future models are going to come off of just calling other models within your model. So, I think we kind of answered a lot of it, but yeah, just like, how can we keep it structured, and the best way to call other people's models and leverage the work that they've done to build other things.
Gotcha. So maybe making it a little easier to, and I think this will come, like, obviously our front end right now is just that API gateway, which is not very, like, visually, easy to navigate. I mean, it's easy, but it's not smart. So I think as we improve the front end and make the sort of the user interaction a bit better, it'll be easier to know like what you have available. But that's good to keep in mind.
Yeah, my input on this question is that the gateway is actually a workshop, right? But beside the workshop, you need to have a catalog. So I think we do need to have a catalog of models with all the models that matured and curated and that ready for mass usage, and that would be a good thing to do, a catalog of good models.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good point. Let's see. I think Brendan, thank you so much for your input. We really appreciate it, and yeah, we're stoked to see some of this stuff end up on the SigDev terminal, hopefully soon.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's been great working with it.
Cool. I know there's a couple of folks from Exponent, Exa or G Exponent. Do you guys want to jump into the fray?
Yeah, I can. Can you guys hear me?
You're a bit faint. It sounds like you're really far away.
Oh, okay. Let me sort my... is this a little bit better? Speaking a little bit louder?
Yeah, I think this will work.
Okay.
Do you maybe want to just give a short intro on who you are? You don't have to dock yourself, but just kind of what you're working on, what Exponent's about, and I guess what models you are interested in that Credmark has or are building or are working with you with, just real briefly.
Yeah, happy to chime in. So Exa from Exponent. I'm basically technical co-founder at Exponent. What we are trying to do is we are building what I consider DeFi suites of DeFi products for teams, Web3 native organizations. So unlike majority of like all DeFi experience, which is tailored around retail users, we are looking at ways that we could enable teams, startups, projects, DAOs, and allowing for ways for these treasury assets to be deployed on different DeFi products, but then ensuring that they're not taking unnecessary risks, or they're for a large number of teams that they may not have the internal capability to be running a fund or managing those capital that can offer like a full suite of products that would integrate natively to their treasury multi-sigs, and give them the ease of use, and then managing all the risks that one would have to face if they were managing a treasury product. Yeah, so a little bit about, I think, since I spoke a little bit about risk, that's where we are utilizing Credmark framework models for our internal, not just internal dashboard, but also like the internal risk systems and like eventually a full suite of automations around that. So if I was to, draw like a quick example to see what this looks like on the engineering perspective or from the product perspective, if our users deploy their treasury vault assets onto our vault, then if it's deployed into say a Aave or compound strategies, then what we would do on our end as strategists is ensuring that there's a certain parameters that we have in mind. So let's say if the utilization ratio goes above a certain threshold, then assets in this pool could be considered risky or at risk. And then what we can do from then is either A, that triggers an alarm for our strategists to take a look at, or B, potentially even trigger an automatic rebalances. And of course, having this like in our own dashboard, so we are constantly watching all the inherent risks that would be applied in all the different DeFi protocols out there and all the positions that we get deployed across all of DeFi. So that's just a little bit about like what we're building and then how we're using Credmark. Oh, I guess I didn't touch on the Credmark.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about how maybe some of our models might fit into this vision that you've just described?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I think we've already started on this, and I've been closely interacting with Nish, who has been working on the model around Curve. So the basis behind that is we look at Curve pool strategies, and then we came up with an idea around, well, you could deploy capital within Curve for convex and earn this X% APY, but then our team of strategists was trying to define what the inherent risks are, and then we realized, oh well, like what we saw with USDN, the curve could be off peg, right? The liquidity pool could be lopsided. And we try to look around for ways or data or metrics around what this might look like. And no one has really, neither like formally defined or even like written any post around, how this data that is already sitting on chain, we could evaluate like a risk parameters around whether or not pool is lopsided or whether or not the assets deployed in this pool risk of losing pegs. So I think we've already been integrating with the Credmark framework. So we're calling in an API on our side, storing in our own database, and we're running an entire stack of like data analytics, like dashboard, risk systems, like full rebalance automation. But we are consuming the risk for curve pool as basically the key parameters that we watch and then using Credmark API for it.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I'm glad that it's worked out for you. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the models Nish has published on, especially the one where you can like simulate what amount of a token would send the price of a stablecoin pool to like a certain price. Like that was a really cool model that I had never really considered, and I've had a lot of fun messing with that.
Which model is that?
That's the depegging ratio. It's forget what its actual name is, but it's really cool. I showed that to you the other day, Seawalk, actually. Yeah, I think that was from the.
Yeah, that's so.
It is one of those things that you just think about it. It's like the most obvious thing that people should be watching out for, but yet no one has.
Yeah, exactly. It's so I think it's below this. Historical below this one. This is the really
depegging amount. Yeah, depegging amount.
Yeah. Nish did a really good job tearing apart their mathematical docs to figure out exactly how you could simulate how to throw one of these pools into an imbalance. Yeah, I mean, I encourage y'all to check to play with this model and check it out. It's on the gateway under contributors. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I'd be curious to see what issues folks might have when trying to run it. If it's not, I'm wondering if it's not as self-explanatory as maybe I think it is. So definitely let us know. X, you actually submitted a question that I thought was really interesting. A few of the other ones you've kind of already answered. The workflow from PR to having models live in production.
I just have a slide for it.
Actually, if I could add one
Oh yeah, go ahead.
thing really quickly, just like front run the question quickly. Is so I think I posted this on the modeling channel. So the TLDR for that is like from the integrator's point of view. When you're calling the API, that is not a historical function. You have a chance to like put in a custom like block number parameters, right? But then the problem is if you're calling in from a client, you don't know what is like the tip of the blockchain that Credmark platform has processed. So when we hit in latest, we actually don't know, when we get the response back, we don't know what block number that is.
Yes.
And our system is pretty much reliant.
Yeah, totally understand that. I believe Kunlun has actually started submitting pull requests to adjust that. So we're hot on that case. The question you had asked that I found interesting was about, are there anything modelers have to worry about with regard to compute resources that models that take a long time to run? And are there any rate limits for hitting certain endpoints to fetch data? Kunlun, I think you have a really good...
I have a slide for it.
Yeah, you have a slide.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I try to explain beyond installation, right? What is actually components of a Credmark modeling framework, the whole system around it. So actually we have two main models of running it, or maybe modes to run it. In dev mode, where almost everybody now is running it using Credmark -dev, that's the command line, and run a model. That's probably the current way. And so the models actually are running locally with calls to your own Web3 servers. So this is actually bounded to the service provider you are using. So for me, I'm actually switching from a service provider I'm running a full node so that I'm achieving better speed. But the computation resources actually hanging on. And if you are calling some of the price models, say the ones I have just upgraded the token to price, and to come up with that one price, actually it takes a lot of resources because it goes to every protocol and go to all the pools. So these are the models actually are so-called deployed. So when you issue a call to token.price, they're actually running on the Credmark gateway and using Credmark's own Web3 subscriptions. And that actually may cause some timeout errors if the query is really long. So we are in reality, you're basically running into a hybrid mode of the fully deployed, which everything run on the gateway, or the pure dev mode, which all the models run local. So you do have some models that run on local and have some models run on gateway. So the solution is actually you can use the option called -L to pinning down the model that you want to run to the local. So actually, let me just quickly show on the terminal. So you can do Credmark. Let's make it smaller. So you can specify an option called -L, and that will be pinning down all the locals. But you need to supply a list of models to be pinned down, so that these will be using your own Web3 server, and you will hit the node. So that's something that would answer the current setup of the computational model.
I see. So if I understood correctly, the if you run with a -L, that would use the client's resources as opposed to the Credmark's API service, right? So I guess from the if you're running all this cloud native, then if this is running on our own either GKE or within a service that sits in AWS, then that's predominantly using our own resources.
Yeah. So let's say I'm running these prices for Avi, right? So just for symbol, and that's AV.
So look at my symbol. That's pretty fucking cool.
Which only we supported a limited list of it. So you can do that, but we really recommend to use address. That's more accurate and hacking proof. So this one actually runs the model, everything, getting the pools, aggregating the prices, all on the gateway, and it actually really takes a while to finish it. So I don't know if I just pause here, making the background, so maybe the result will come out sometime. But if you can, just say pinning down all the models that actually this one depends on, then you are able to get running all the models, getting the result by hitting your own web tracer. So how to get it? I mean, we do a bit nice printout. Okay, so because I'm running it for the second time, and so that's the result was cached.
Wow.
So you need to get copy of all these things, and these are all the dependents that this model actually been calling. So then what I've been doing is that you just start to copying and pinning them down. So I just want to run this model locally, and this model locally, and another model locally, so that these actually will not hit the servers. So that will actually sort of, you are leveraging your own resources versus Credmark's gateway.
Very
I
cool.
see. So that, with that said, like it's because that model is using almost like running on multiple dependencies of different submodels. So if you specify the aggregate model and all its sub-dependencies with like a local flag, then that runs significantly faster.
Yeah. So I hope that you if you want to run historical, I would suggest that you run for one point, get the list of dependencies, and then try to compare if you hit your own Web3 server with let's say you want to, with a shorter period of time, let's 2 days or 10 days, and you want to get it every 12 hours, an hour, and then try to compare with our Credmark's gateway and your Web3. And if your Web3 is faster, then you can use Web3. But the problem with that is that your own Web3, it doesn't have a cache. So every time when you request a model, you need to, you will redo the calculation. But if you hit the Credmark's gateway, then you will apply some caching. So whatever result has been computed and will be there. And the second time you ask for it will be just like a flash.
Got it. Yeah, I think I appreciate the fact that you can run all of these models locally. I think it removes like it removes the central point of failure being like the central Credmark service, but also I think that's more because we're planning to be pretty cloud native. We're setting up infrastructure for that. So I think just the fact that we could set up a server, run these queries, like run these commands with the sub dependencies, and not having to I think having redundancies is great, but the fact that we can drop down to running these locally is great.
Yep.
Great, awesome. You have any other points, questions, concerns, Exa?
Let me look real quick. I don't think. Oh, I think that's one. That's one more question, which is with regard to the historical models. So I'm seeing historical models I'm seeing on Credmark uses 24 hours intervals. I see it. I already looked at the code, and I think this is coded into. So I would assume that it's possible to get more granular sets of data. So let's say whether that is like hourly or every few hours, and that's possible if I was to either build my own local model like locally or run with like a different functions. Is that the right assumptions?
One of the slide. Yep, sure. You're right that actually we probably didn't talk this too much. Is that there are year, months, day, hour, minute, and seconds. All these are available. Is to specify either the window and also the interval. So just that by some kind of convention, maybe from the traditional finance, we use 1 day, and that's end of the 1 day UTC time, which is arguably just one point of time to get the price. So that's what we are using currently, but it's not the only one. So you can get it for even every 3 minutes.
But I imagine that uses quite a number of resources to actually compute that, right?
Yeah. One of the great things I learned is that Web3 is slow. Even I have my local server set up for the full node. It actually takes quite a bit. To curate everything. There's some that we are working on something like parallelism, so that we can speed it.
Yeah,
I see. Noted. So I think for context for majority of like granular, because we do want some granular like data points for our systems, but luckily for us this only has to be run once per each metrics that we want to watch out for, because we're storing historical data. Like we do all that within our time series, anyways. And so yeah, it was probably just have to be run once as like a one-off task. But yeah, I think noted on like the computational resource.
cool. Great. Yeah, that I actually did not know that we could get that granular. That's good to know. That's really cool. As well as the local component, kind of specifying what you want to run locally versus using our infrastructure. We have a few minutes left. I have a crazy idea, Kunlun. Wondering if we can live code a model right now.
You're right. I actually come a bit prepared, but I'm going to cheat a bit. Okay. So I have a PR submitting, and it's subject to change. But it seems that Evo and Neil like the idea. So I have this model come out called console, which is a CLI console, command line console. So you just need to run it. Then actually you are in the middle of a model, all right, and you are ready to experiment all kinds of things. So you can say, Simo, I seems to have a love for RV tonight. So I just type it, and you have it, the token, and then you can say, how about let me get some prices for it. So actually I just provide some shorthand called run model, and get Uniswap and I'll just get it for the token. Symbol. Aave. Yep. And because I have run this command before, so that actually the gateway actually just returned the result from the cache. All right. And so what else I want to show? Let's see one run model historical example. So I have a method called load. I have a little snippet I actually had done before. So let me see if I have the file. I think it's called run, maybe called historical demo. Let me see whether I have it. Yeah. So, so this little piece of code load up as ETH prices, ETH token, and then query for historical prices. 5 days, 1 day, and 5 days or 12 hours. So, and then print out the result. Although, by the way, in our model, finished model, we should not use print. But since this is console environment, we're experimenting, so use print. Right? And this has been one of the model, and I think I didn't use the one of the things. Got to change it here. So because this one I have additional model return type, so it's return an object instead of a dictionary. So what will be the change? So that's the output from the first model and the second one. So the first one is actually 1 day for 5 days, and second one is 12 hours for 5 days.
Huh.
Yeah, and the last one would be specifying an end date, and you will return 5 days from the May the 2nd. Okay, so that's a different showcase. So,
that's really cool. Is this example historical code somewhere people can see in our models repo?
yeah, so there are existing models, example models in our repo. But it could be we are adding so many comments, so the actual code is buried inside. But it should be inside the example 11. Yeah, example 11. And just another thing, this is the ledger example is a huge treasury. It has a lot of precious code for all kinds of. There are more than 300 lines there. So it just showcases of different ledger. That's definitely a mine you can dig on. Yep. Moment, do you want me to show more, or you want to take over?
If you have more, please, dude. This is awesome. I'm enjoying this.
What else? I think I do have a couple of models. So self load. Let's see what I do. Okay, ledger. Okay, so ledger demo. So that's what I mean. I cheated. Okay, so I think that's ledger transaction. Yeah, that's a little bit of code, which is to get list the minimum gas, and this is actually a very long running model. Why it is cached, so that's why it's. So basically, you actually run over all the transactions and get the minimum gas, maximum gas. So I was seeing that this syntax is a bit long-winded than SQL, but if you try to write it, would be like select, right? Select and aggregate. You just need to separate the normal columns with the aggregates. So the aggregates will be specified with ledger.aggregate note the capital letter and then followed by a SQL function. And this is just the column names. This is just so to look them up. I find it may not be very easy. That you can actually go to the framework project, and they are basically open to public. And there's a file called ledger, and you can get. I think I need to print this out. Also, we need to save it for the environment, but this file is very precious. If you want to work for something that want to get something similar to do, that would be the list of columns names that's in our database. So that we actually have all the tables definition here, so you can look them up.
That's really cool. I think, Brendan, that kind of touches on the aggregate functions that you were asking about a while back. Seems like we have that implemented now, which is cool to see. Kunlun, thank you so much. That was really impressive. I'm stoked to get this command line. I think this is going to really expedite some modeling time to have this command line already.
Yeah.
Look forward to that. I think we can close it there. This was our first one. I'm sure I can do a lot of things better. So please, internally, my team, let me know, and then externally, anyone who's kind of jumping in from outside the community, feel free to give me your feedback, or just topics you want us to cover, things you're interested in. We can probably get more specific. I think we're going to do these. My goal is to do them every other week. And maybe we can get more specific and do more like live coding if that's something people are interested in. Or just
sorry, but I just wanted to say, no, this was awesome. This was very informative from two levels. One, the conceptual level to understand what kind of models we're all even referring to learn what's possible. But then to follow up with this, the technical level, if we can learn those at the same time, that would be best, because conceptually there's ideas out there, but to compound all the ideas, starting with DebtDAO, ending with this, it does start at the technical level. But no, Mo did fantastic. This was very informative and fun, and do them more frequently than every other week, please.
Well, I don't want to compromise quality over quantity. I think
there's a lot of building to be done.
There's a lot of building to be done. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room for individual, like working with individuals one-on-one at this point. But I think I can probably give Kunlun a little more heads up than I did already. And he did an incredible job given the short amount of time that I gave him. So Kunlun, thank you so much. That was fantastic. Your slideshow.
Thank you, Kunlun and Mo.
I was skeptical, but that was a really good slideshow. And I was mistaken in my assumption that the slideshow was unnecessary. But thank you everybody for joining. I will keep y'all updated on when this sort of larger workshop will happen again, and obviously I will be talking to people building individually, probably in like the next hour, based on how the last couple weeks have gone. And yeah, feel free to leave any. I don't know where you'd put feedback. I guess just DM me or put it. I don't know, wherever you want. Just make sure you tag me and tell me how we could do this better. What more you want to get out of it. Anything like that, I'm happy to improve upon that. Once again, Kunlun, thank you so much for doing this. It was really impressive to watch you work. Your explanations were fantastic. I learned quite a bit, and thank you to everybody else. DebtDAO, Steady State, Exponent, TheTie. What y'all are building is really, really cool, and I'm super excited to help y'all take the next few steps to get things even better. So until next time. I'll see y'all real soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
This is really cool.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Cheers.